Hello, everyone. This is the Free American Press with your host, Alexander Horat. And today we're joined by my mother and real estate broker, Maria Horat. We have a family owned real estate company here in California. So if you're needing any help with real estate, don't hesitate to call us. Uh, so we're going to be talking about the recent government shutdown and also how that relates to gold and silver in today's market. So do you have some thoughts on this, Mom?
Hi, yes, I think it's important we start talking about the government shutdown because, of course, that's a sign that the economy is in trouble, as we all know. And we've seen that because also the prices of gold and silver have went up considerably. This year, prices of gold are up by 45%. And the S&P 500 is only up by 13%. And we know that the housing market is in trouble. Is barely went up, if any at all, by 2%. And a lot of markets, the housing prices are going down. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was a little research that I did on the prices of gold in relationship with the purchase of housing. And so how we have seen how the prices basically we always think in terms of dollars, how the prices have went up on the median house, the median price home in the United States. But in relationship to the gold, unfortunately, it's not the same. If we see, for example, and I'm going to put this chart up, 1965, the median house price was 514 ounces of gold. And that right now
It's
was
$3,900.
so that was when it was $35 per ounce, right? So now is what? Almost 4,900.
Exactly. It's actually from a year ago, it was only $2,600, so it's gone up over $1,300 in the matter of a year.
So that what that means is that now it only takes 105 basically ounces of gold to buy the median price home in the United States. So that's telling you that actually the housing prices in relationship to gold have went down since 1963. So that's telling us that we really need to make sure that we save our real money, right? Because the US dollar has been in trouble for a long time. It's only paper money backed by debt. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing problems across the board here with our economy. And what are your thoughts on this government shutdown?
Well, this government shutdown is basically showing how Republicans and Democrats aren't able to work together. I think it's going to cause some disruptions in the markets, of course, and we're going to see how long this government shutdown lasts. But people are not going to get paid for a while, and when this government shutdown ends, then they'll have to get paid their back pay and everything. So this is definitely going to cause turmoil here in the United States, and we'll see. I think it's J.P. Morgan is saying that this government shutdown is going to go on for 2 weeks. I think that's what the data says. That's their projection. So we'll see exactly how long it lasts, but and depending how long it lasts, we're going to see how much it's going to affect the American people.
Right. Yeah, JP Morgan, I mean, they say that the Jamie Dimon is saying it's going to last a couple of weeks, but who knows? There's an article, a few articles out there, but basically, of course, the American people get the shorter end of the sticks. There's going to be like 750,000 furloughs. There are lots of jobs that are going to be put on hold for a while, and certain sectors are basically going to be shut down. But of course, the military is still going to be holding strong. So basically, all the money is going towards what?
Towards wars and stuff
Yeah,
like
funding
that.
wars.
So I'm going to share the screen to show everyone. So for the military, the majority of veteran benefits and military operations will continue to be funded regardless of the shutdown. However, pay for military and civilian workers will be delayed until funding deal is reached. So basically, people in the military aren't going to get paid until they come up with a solution to this funding problem. So if this persists for a long amount of time, that could really change the U.S. military in a big way if people aren't getting paid.
Yeah, my assumption will be that they're going to make sure that they have the funding that they need for the military, if even if they don't make an agreement on these other things. But I think both parties will agree on that the military needs to get the funding that they need to be able to be involved with all these wars that they have across the world. And speaking of war, we have some trouble going on closer to our shores here.
Oh, yeah. So we're seeing some major confrontations happening with Venezuela. Maduro's actually called out his forces and put them in strategic spots because the United States has been shooting boats that are Venezuelan boats that are apparently involved in narcotics and drugs, illegal drugs. So they've been shooting these boats and destroying them. There's actually been one just the other day, I think yesterday, that was destroyed that killed four people in the boat. Uh, so we're seeing the United States starting to have a lot of naval warfare operations being put near Venezuela. So it sounds like the United States could take over airfields and military bases in Venezuela. So we might be seeing an all-front war. But my mom has a good perspective on this because she's a native Venezuelan who lives in the United States as a citizen. So I think she can offer a unique perspective on this possible war.
Yeah, from a Venezuelan perspective, I can tell you that a lot of Venezuelans are desperately hoping and quietly hoping because, we have a dictatorship down there. We have a communist government. So we are at the very end of maybe a transition to something else down there. And we're desperately, hoping that a savior will come and save us from what we have suffered for almost 30 years. So Hugo Chavez got into power in 1998, and everybody voted for him at the time. He was the one who was going to restore the country and bring the change that everybody thought was needed because there was a lot of corruption. But of course, politicians get elected, they say what people want to hear at the time. And once they get in power, they do whatever they want. So that's what happened. Then he was a horrendous dictator for 14 years. Then he died, and his predecessor, who was the vice president at the time, who used to be a bus driver, got became president. And of course, his rigged elections, people have tried to revolt, people have tried to do what they could. Guns have been abolished there for a long time. I think it was back on 2012 when guns were abolished, so people don't have the right to bear arms. And anyway, so it's been a horrendous struggle. People are starting. Inflation is like the highest inflation in the world over there. It's really sad because it used to be a very prosperous country with one of the highest GDP. So, what's going on today? People are hoping that, and there's a lot of misinformation too, because people are just hoping so bad that the U.S. sends their troops and get Maduro out of power, and for the opposition, who's led by a lady, Maria Corina Machado, who has been actively trying to get people to vote this regime out. They desperately want her to become the next president and the next leader of the country. And that might happen, but I see that the US intervention down there, even though it is true, everything they're saying, it is a criminal regime. Um, they're involving narco trafficking and all of these horrible things that they're saying is true. I'm not saying that is not true at all, but I think the main reason why they want to go down there right now is because there is conflict with Iran and there's conflict with China and Russia. And all of these three countries are heavily invested in Venezuela. And remember that Venezuela is one of the countries that has, or actually, it is the country that has the highest oil reserves in the world. So they have been extracting oil and gold. mining for gold, particularly China, for a long time. Ever since Chavez was, elected president down there, they have been working on these goals. So I think what's happening right now is coming to the end of they're trying to divide the cake, and of course, I think the United States wants a piece of that cake, and they won't have a piece of that cake if China and Iran and Russia are the only ones in charge down there. So it is a very complex thing because as a Venezuelan, of course, I want to see the end of that regime. On the other hand, yes, I mean, everybody's hoping whatever happened in Panama when they got rid of Noriega, everybody's hoping that that happens in Venezuela and that it will become a prosperous country again. So even though they're telling us one story, the real reason might be the reason that I just stated. And we know that governments throughout the world have been involved in a lot of criminal activity, and we know these things about Epstein, and all of that. And so let's just say none of these governments are innocent of doing a lot of criminal activity.
I
But
definitely agree.
I feel that that is the reason why. I know that's the reason why, because that we're pretty close to going to work with Iran. We know the whole thing with Russia and China, and they are, taking part of a very substantial piece of the pie right now in the Western in the Americas. And Venezuela is in a very strategic location. It's on the Caribbean, and it has a very strategic location, not just for the U.S. but for the Americas in general and Europe. And it has, it's in the middle of all of these continents when you look at it in the map. So that's my perspective on it. And, of course, I would love to see what people think about it. So feel free to share your thoughts.
Yeah, please comment on your thoughts on what's going on in Venezuela and where it's going to take the United States. And I'd just like to thank my mom for her perspective on this issue, these two issues that we talked about. And I would just like to say thank you for everyone who's watching. I hope you can subscribe to the channel